Hello and welcome to the MBOM podcast, where you'll learn to master the business of yoga. MBOM is a proud part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Amanda Kingsmith. I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a yoga business coach, and a total business geek. Here at MBOM, you'll learn everything you need to know to create a sustainable yoga business by learning from myself and guests from around the world about how they built their yoga businesses, and about how you too can become a successful yoga teacher, studio owner, and much more. All right, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Mastering the Business of Yoga. I am really excited that you're joining me for today's episode of the show. Today on the podcast, we have a recurring guest, Alex Haley, who is one of the co-founders of OfferingTree. And OfferingTree is a platform and a company that you guys have heard lots about over the past few years. Even if you're new to the show, you've probably heard of them before. They are a long-term partner of mine and my absolute favorite software platform for yoga teachers. And we're going to tell you all about OfferingTree and whatnot, and why I love them so much. So hopefully by the end of this episode, you're going to understand why I love them and why I've partnered with them for so long. And I'm really excited to have Alex back on the show today. We did a really fun episode in the fall of 2021, just talking about trends that they were seeing in the yoga industry, as this platform that works with yoga teachers and wellness entrepreneurs. And today we're just really going to be diving into OfferingTree. So I'm excited to hopefully learn some things that I haven't even heard before. So Alex, welcome to the show today. I'm excited to have you back here.
Thanks, Amanda. Delighted to be back.
Yeah, it's always fun to connect with the OfferingTree team. You guys are all super awesome. Do you want to start by sharing where you're joining us from today?
Yeah, I'm joining from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And we are finally coming out of winter, which is the weirdest thing. But we, up until I think maybe like 7 days ago, we still had winter gear. So jackets, boots, stuff like that. So I'm thrilled that we're now into spring.
Yeah, I bet. As a Canadian, I totally understand that. I FaceTimed with my parents on just this past weekend, earlier this week, and they were telling me that they woke up to snow. And for context, we're currently recording pretty close to the middle of May. So that's a little bit intense, I think, for most people who aren't from like the northern parts of the world. And here in Mexico, we're having like a super, super heat wave and it's super hot. So I'm trying not to complain about the heat here, but I've been sweating my face off for like a month. And so I would love to hear a little bit about, the origin story of OfferingTree, like how this came to be, where you guys came up with the idea, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, happy to share that. So the origin story for OfferingTree came out of my experience as being a co-manager and a donation-based yoga studio. And the studio that I was managing really was focused on community and connection and trying to be really plugged into just what was happening locally. And they had been using essentially pen and paper based system and realized that as they were growing, that wasn't really sustainable. They needed to find something else. And so they initially, I think, went the route that most studios went, especially 5 years ago, which is they kind of looked around, they did some searching, and they kept coming across MindBody Online. So they went ahead and purchased that software. They rolled it out at the studio over the summer because they figured that was a good time to do it, a little bit lower traffic. And they quickly discovered that it was a complete disaster. What was happening, the teachers were spending huge amounts of time trying to troubleshoot the technology. There were long lines of students as they were trying to come into the studio, and it was completely cutting down on that community vibe. And the owners had enough courage to just say, okay, this isn't working. I'm pulling the plug. So they pulled the plug. They turned to me and they said, well, you know something about technology. Can you solve this? And my answer was, I think that's a little above my pay grade. Let me talk to some of my friends who do this for a living. And that was sort of the origin story. So I talked with my co-founders who were just my friends at the time and essentially said, hey, look, here's the problem at the studio. Do you think you could solve this? And they said, yeah, we can solve it. But I'm willing to bet this is a bigger problem beyond just this one studio. And so that's how we got started. And we were really focused on trying to support small studios and independent teachers that really wanted to have technology be in the background and have all of the sort of client relationship and teaching in the foreground so that they weren't spending all their time trying to do tech. And then the other experience, which is part of the origin story, which is mostly my journey, I went through a number of different trainings and I was always getting the same thing. I was getting trained on how to practice, how to teach, and I was never really getting trained on the business or the technology side. And so as I was listening to my colleagues in all these different trainings, I quickly realized that there was nobody that was supporting the teacher. And that was another big influence for the origin of OfferingTree.
Yeah, that's really awesome to hear. And I feel like that's probably a story that so many listeners can relate to. And I think certainly myself as well, when I first started working in the yoga industry, which was actually before I got a yoga teacher training, I had to learn Mind Body Online because the studio I was working with was also using that. And it's a dense platform. Like it's great for some people and some studios, but it's pretty dense. And I think that also too, once I became a yoga teacher, it's like, okay, well, I need ways to kind of start my own business, but Mind Body Online was way out of my price range. I was like, this is way too much for me as a solo teacher. It has a lot of features that are great for like the studios I'm supporting, but as a teacher, this is just way too much. And so I would love to hear, kind of the first iteration of OfferingTree, like when you guys actually sat down and were like, okay, we're going to solve this solution. What did you come up with and what did OfferingTree kind of look like at that point?
Yeah, the first iteration was really focusing, I think, on what were some of the most common pain points. And that was everything from scheduling. So finding a way to easily schedule in-person events and then eventually online events, having a very easy mechanism to take payments. And then also, even in the first iteration, we had a basic sort of website design so that you could start to customize your own website. It was pretty limited, but it was enough that if you wanted to, you could kind of consolidate your website, your scheduling, and your payment into one place. So that was really the first iteration. And then as we started growing, we added a whole bunch of new features with like email marketing tools. And then particularly when COVID hit and everything shut down, we did a massive push to release a whole bunch of features for on-demand content, doing live sort of online events and being able to have Zoom integration. So all of that was driven out of the immediate needs that were coming as a result of the pandemic.
Yeah, that's really awesome to hear. And I want to dive into all of that in detail. But before we get there, I just wanted to comment that I remember when we first partnered together, I think I met with Eddie, who's another co-founder, and he kind of walked me through the platform. And what really amazed me was just how simple it was. And this was something that I was hearing from yoga teachers I was working with. Like, I know I need to have my own business. I know I need to have an online presence. I know I need a website, but WordPress completely freaks me out. Mind Body Online completely freaks me out. Doing these things in making a website on WordPress that has really solid capacity can be really expensive if you're not a web designer. And a lot of these yoga teachers didn't have a big budget to work with. And to be able to create something really easy on your own and that looks good and that is totally functional, I think was just something that was really needed in the yoga industry and obviously continues to be needed. And one of the things that I really love about you guys is just how you've really expanded to the needs of yoga teachers. Like as yoga teachers say, hey, we need this functionality. You guys are working on it, which is super, super awesome.
Yeah, that's I'd say one of our guiding principles is that we're really driven by the needs of the community. And so feedback that we get from everyone using the platform. And a lot of times we'll have, new users, whether it's a teacher or studio join the platform, and they'll say, wow, this is really great. Like, how did you think of this? And we said, well, actually, we just listened. And by listening, we discovered that this is what was needed. And so it feels like it's this constant process of paying it forward where we're getting suggestions and ideas from the community. And then we build those. And then somebody that just joins the platform is like, wow, it's like you designed this just for me. And it's like, well, it's not an accident. It's actually coming directly out of the conversation that we're having with the entire community.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a really good business tip that we can pull from this that anyone can draw from. So anyone listening can kind of, take what Alex is talking about and use this in your own business. And it's this idea that when you listen to your students, when you listen to your customers, they tell you what they need. And so if you're trying to come up with like, what's a program I could create, or what's a workshop I could create, or what class times should I teach at, or how much should my classes cost? I mean, these are things that your students will tell you. So using this idea of your students being your market research for what you create in your business is a really, really great kind of just, business lesson, business tidbit that I wanted to pull from your experience with OfferingTree. And I think that obviously it's like worked really well for you guys as you've been able to grow so much over the last couple of years. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about, just letting listeners know and maybe educating myself a bit more about exactly, what you guys offer. So maybe we can start with like the website component of things and then kind of talk about all the other features that go along with that.
Yeah, happy to do that. So looking at the website side, what we do is we essentially allow you to do two different things. You can either host your entire website on the platform, and that's particularly appealing for a lot of teachers or even small studios that maybe haven't put a lot of time or investment in building out a website. So we have that functionality and capability where there's templates, you can edit it, you can design it, you can add in different images and change the text and do all that. The added benefit from having an all-in-one platform, which is what OfferingTree does, is that you can actually take other components that are part of the platform and add them directly to different pages of the website. So, for example, if you had created a specific on-demand course that you wanted to offer your students, you could actually take that as a component and put it directly on your homepage if you wanted to, or you could build out a separate page and like add that component to the separate page that you're building on your website. So the flexibility to take all of these components, which are integrated, and just use them as building blocks for your site was kind of the vision that we had for this integrated solution. The other option that we have is if you already have an existing website and you're not interested in using us to build your website, you can take all of the OfferingTree components and just embed them directly into your existing site. So we have users that do both, sort of building their entire website with us, and you can buy a domain through us that will really make it your own, specific web address, or you can embed it in a site that you've already created.
Yeah, that's really cool. Because I think that's one of the things that I know I've been asked by people before is like, am I able to like, all right, I have a website already. I built one. Am I still able to use OfferingTree? And maybe we can get into some of the other functionality that OfferingTree offers in terms of like, if somebody had a website already, maybe they want to schedule classes or workshops or one-on-ones, courses, memberships, all that stuff. Like, how does it work if they've already got their website in terms of using OfferingTree?
Yeah, the way it's designed, again, we're trying to make it as flexible and modular, but also easy to use as we can. And so each of the components, just like what you named, memberships, packages, on-demand courses, your schedule, all of that content is embeddable. Each of those units, you can think of them as you can plug them directly into your existing website, and you can do it wherever you want. You just have to grab some code that we give you, and then you just paste it in and it'll work on your website.
Cool. Simple as that. It's pretty handy. I think one of the things that I've always told yoga teachers that I think is really great is having like this one-stop shop for everything that you need in your business is like truly remarkable. Because I know when I started out, it was like, okay, I've built my website on WordPress and I've, paid for my domain on Bluehost and I've paid for my theme through something else. I don't remember, StudioPress or something like that. And then I've got, MailChimp was what I was using at the time for email. So that I've got MailChimp, and then, okay, I need scheduling. So now I'm using Acuity, and okay, I want to have sales pages. So I've got lead pages, and it's like, those all cost money. Like none of those things are free. So it's like all these monthly payments that I was paying for. And it's also like all these passwords and logins that you have to remember and softwares that you have to remember how to use. And I feel like that just becomes a full-time job. And I know that most like yoga teachers, wellness entrepreneurs, like they didn't get into this to have a full-time job doing like software and, digital marketing and remembering passwords and making sure your monthly payments go through, et cetera, et cetera. So it's super cool to have everything in one place. And so we've kind of talked about the website component, how if you don't have your website with OfferingTree or you have a website, you can still use it for everything. Maybe let's talk a little bit about like all the different things you can do with OfferingTree. So if somebody's kind of looking at a bunch of different platforms, try to figure out what they want to do for their business, what are the different things that OfferingTree offers a yoga teacher?
Yeah, it's at a high level, the kind of main core features that we provide. As I said, the website, which we talked about being a big one, scheduling. And so this allows for one-on-one appointments. It allows for in-person events, in-person workshops, in-person, like course series. If you're doing like a 4-week course or something like that, you can also do all of that online. So you can do online one-on-one appointments, online workshops, or just recurring weekly classes. You can do, again, the online sort of courses. So we've built out the scheduling to kind of try to anticipate all of the different use cases that you might have and how you schedule. After scheduling, the next major component is payment. And so we allow for a whole series of different payment options. You can do credit card payments. You can do memberships. You can do packages. You can set up free trials. You can have a lot of different options that you can configure with different ways that students can pay. And so that's particularly useful for studios and for teachers that want to set up like recurring revenue. So having that membership option allows for that recurring revenue, and you can set the periods however you want them. If it's like a monthly membership, or it's every quarter it's a membership, and you could even restrict how many times you can use the membership within that period. So we've really tried to account for a lot of different variation about how studios and teachers operate. So that's sort of the payment functionality. The next big functionality is email marketing tools. And so this is where we do things like newsletters. You can do lead generators. You can do kind of automated messages that go out to a course or to a class. You can set up custom registration notifications. You can even set up custom notifications to send out after class, which is really nice. So you can like set all this stuff up in advance and then just teach your class, and it'll automatically send out all the communications that you want to, that you had already pre-scheduled. So that's sort of like another big core feature set. And then I would say the last couple of core feature sets are a lot around on-demand content. So whether you're, you want a video library, or if you want a full-fledged online course that's on demand, if you want to create like a challenge, all of that's possible with this sort of on-demand functionality. And then the last sort of core component is really looking at reporting, analytics, and just sort of customer insights. So looking at, which clients are coming to your events, and, being able to do some reporting based on that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And just to clarify, in case anyone's kind of like confused by anything, you can have all of these different things kind of running simultaneously. And this is, you correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is like, so you could have your business where you run, weekly group classes, say you've got Friday at 9 a.m. So you can have that with the different payment plans. And then you could also have a membership where somebody can be paying, maybe it's $50 a month or something like that for whatever you want to offer them. And you get to choose that. And then you could also create a course. So maybe you have like an intro to meditation course or something that people can buy separately, or maybe it's also included in their membership. And then you can also have, a video bank of libraries, which again could be like a separate membership, or with maybe the monthly membership that you do for live classes. So you can have all these different elements of your business in one place, which is one of the coolest things. And one of the things I love about OfferingTree, because like I said before, there's like a million softwares out there. And with all the research I was doing prior to, discovering you guys, it was like, oh, well, if you want a course, Teachable is really great. But if you're looking more for a membership, that's like not the best software. So maybe find another one for that. And if you want to do, video on demand, then you maybe want a different one. And all these softwares are great. I'm not hating on any other software. They all serve a purpose. But I feel like as yoga teachers, we often want a lot of elements in our businesses. And some of these really specific technologies, specific softwares, they don't serve all the purposes we're looking for. And to be able to have all that in one place on the back end of your website is just amazing. Like it simplifies things tenfold.
Yeah, and that's sort of, I would say, exactly as you articulated. That's our vision, which is that when we talk to people, we basically it's sort of like our internal metric. We kind of say, look, we can either um, at least cut in half the amount of software that you're using, or we can double the number of revenue options that you have. And sometimes we can do both. We can half the, more than half or half the amount of software that you're currently using at the same time that we're more than doubling the number of revenue options that you have. And that's because of the power of this all-in-one system. Everything talks together. You're seeing it in one place. And so it also creates a sort of, your mind space is not occupied by trying to have to remember how to use 6 or 7 different platforms. You're just using one platform and all the features work together. And that's, I think, really our vision is to, kind of get rid of the headache, the heartache, and just make it really simple for you so that you can focus on teaching, which is what most teachers want to do.
Yeah, 100%. I know you're a teacher, I'm a teacher, so I feel like we both like understand that. And I think that that's one of the cool things is like having a software developed for yoga teachers by yoga teachers is really cool. And the other thing I wanted to talk about, because you'd kind of mentioned this before, was just adding features during the pandemic. So obviously, March 2020 hits, it's like the whole world kind of shuts down. And obviously that means that there's a very big change in this yoga world, in this yoga industry, and everyone's going online. And then there's, people are set up with their businesses. And then there's this huge panic for like, okay, we're going to go on Zoom or we're going to do Facebook Live or whatever. Okay, how do we get paid doing this? How do we send links out? How do we do all of this stuff in terms of having an online business? And I know you guys added features really, really quick. So can you talk a little bit about, for somebody who's maybe has an online component of their business in this regard, or maybe runs their business entirely online, like how OfferingTree can support that?
Yeah, I'd say one big thing that we recognized during particularly the early parts of the pandemic, where was essentially that teachers and studios and everybody was having to just on the fly adapt. And what most people didn't account for was the complexity of having to account for, okay, how do I do registration? How do I get a Zoom link out to somebody? How do I take payment? Because the systems that they most often were using before didn't actually have the functionality to address this new reality. And so what we really focused on at OfferingTree was building all of this in again as another kind of integrated component so that you didn't have to do something extra. All you had to do was click a little box that said add Zoom, and then it would just add Zoom to the normal scheduling that you were used to. And then when somebody registered, it would just send them an email directly with a button that would take them immediately to the Zoom class. And it also meant that you didn't have to like log into Zoom and use their interface and do all this stuff and then go back and then okay, now I got to send an email and okay, now I got to send them the link to pay me via Venmo or Square Up or whatever. So really, what we focused on was trying to make it this sort of seamless process of being able to integrate online, in person, and both. And so we've also seen that as we're in this kind of new normal where things are constantly, it seems like moving back and forth between, okay, now they're more open up, we're doing more in person. Whoa, we're going to pull back a little bit. We're going to do more online. The system has been able to accommodate those shifts without having to change much because you're just turning things on and off. And so really that's been the power of what we've been focusing on is making sure that there's flexibility built in so that when you need to be in person, you can do that. When you need to be online, you can do that. And if you even want to do hybrid, you can do that too.
That's so awesome, because I know that was a huge challenge. And as somebody who works with teachers and studio owners, this was something that was totally, new to me as well. It was just a part of the yoga space that I hadn't worked in, at least in that capacity. Like, I knew how to use a camera and a microphone to record classes for YouTube or that type of thing. And I taught a couple privates online, but I'd always just, we hop on Skype and I prop my phone or my computer up and I use my AirPods. It was nothing that was like super fancy. And I feel like it just is a different level when you're adding, Zoom links that have to go out to like 5, 10, 15, 20 people. And if you're the only teacher, and you're trying to figure out like, oh, why aren't my students here? Oh crap, they're in the wrong Zoom room, or I'm in the wrong Zoom room. It's just so stressful to do all of that. And so to have something that can just function for you in that way, like students sign up, they pay, you open Zoom, they get the link, they show up there, you teach your class. Like that's so simple, so straightforward, and kind of a dream, I think. If we think about to like, going 2 years back in history, it's like things were so crazy and wild and hard.
Yeah, yeah, and that was the other big thing that we noticed is that we were actually we were doing a lot of education, and that's part of our that's part of the DNA of the company because we're set up as a public benefit company, which means that we have this obligation to have a net positive impact on society. And so we also quickly noticed that there was a lot of there's a lot of need for learning how to use Zoom, learning how to structure a course online. What kind of technology do you need? So we were running all of these educational webinars, and we still do those today. I know you've come on our webinar series as well, and we've continued that to this day because we've actually seen that it's not just technology; it's also about the ongoing learning and the education that makes it so important. Just for everybody in the community.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's really great that you're doing that because, I mean, the pandemic is like a huge example of a huge pivot, but things are changing constantly, right? Like in the world with technology, with software, in the yoga space. And so, trying to kind of stay on top of that, I think is super, super important. And being able to learn from experts and people who have a little bit more knowledge on this is really, really awesome. And I know you guys do a great job at bringing really awesome guests on with really diverse topics and stuff. So we can definitely give, people a link for that and stuff, maybe at the end, so that they can, get on the email list, make sure they're up to date with all of that because yeah, you guys are constantly putting on really, really awesome topics and have a whole like library of all that stuff, which is really good and really important. Um, and then I know one of the things that OfferingTree has recently branched into, which as somebody who works with studios, I'm super stoked about, is actually having, a little bit more capacity for these bigger classes and these studios with more teachers, et cetera, et cetera. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, we're super excited about this because we had, our focus really had been on the sort of solo teacher. And what we discovered is that there were a number of small studios that were signing up to use our platform anyways, because they basically said, this is great, even though you're not designed specifically for studios. I totally get, why this would be so valuable for us. And as we noticed more studios signing up to use the platform, we said, well, wait a minute, we can probably also help studios. And so we've done a big push to launch a new plan specifically for studios that has added functionality. So you can do things like have multiple logins with different teachers, and then you can have different permissions for those teachers, and then you can actually assign teachers to the specific event or class that you're trying to schedule. And then we're also increasing a whole bunch of the reporting features so that there'll be so much more in there for kind of analytics and analysis so that studio owners can get the pulse of what's going on. And we're also really excited about it because what it does is we know that all of these features that are going to benefit studios are going to have a net positive impact for all of our current users that are solo teachers because they're going to get increased reporting functionality. They're going to get the ability to, some of these new features that we're launching are going to flow down to those individual users. And that's what also we're super passionate about is that because the software is constantly evolving, everything that we're working on has these positive impacts for everyone that's already using the system. So there's constantly new updates that are coming out. And we take a lot of pride in being able to update our community about saying like, hey, we just built this new feature that was requested. Check it out. Here's a help article. And so that's kind of what keeps us going.
Yeah, for sure. That's so awesome to hear. And I know this is a conversation I've had with so many studio owners because I work with a lot of studios as well as yoga teachers. And I feel like both studios that I've worked with kind of as like the core studios that I've supported started with Mind Body Online. One transitioned to another software, the other one stayed on, but it's just been because like it's had the best functionality for what they need, but now that there's another platform that does that, that's super great. And it's interesting because that studio owner in particular would always be like, oh, like, what's like going on in the industry, Amanda, like, what do you recommend? And I'm like, well, I recommend OfferingTree, but I don't think they quite have the capacity for what we're doing because, there's 35 classes a week and pretty large teaching roster, probably 15 to 20 teachers. And it just gets complicated when you're kind of, I guess, like a medium-sized studio because you're not just like one main studio owner with like maybe a couple teachers teaching, but you're also not like core power where you've got, I don't even know how many locations they have. Let's say 30 locations, 50 locations. Like you're not spread across an entire country. And so I think that's where like my body serves these like really big studios well because it's super, super functional in that way. And OfferingTree has been serving these individual teachers really well. And now that you're able to kind of, meet the needs of these like smaller to mid-sized yoga studios, I think that's a really cool opportunity, like both for you and for these teachers and for these owners.
Yeah, and that's really our vision. Our vision is to, from the get go, has always been to find who's not being served, like what are the underserved spaces, and try to move into that. And so we've, as I said, we started with the solo teachers, and now we're moving up to the small to medium sized studios, and we're just going to keep adding features and functionality, and that's kind of our sweet spot is really to go where a lot of people didn't go, and try to serve the needs there.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And so maybe let's talk pricing because I feel like that's always something super important. And I know that people listening who are intrigued are obviously going to be going to Google and see, Googling how much this costs and whatnot. But maybe we can just walk people through like what the different pricing plans are. If you're starting out, if you're kind of more established and want to be working with OfferingTree, if you, are a studio, what are the different kind of pricing plans and options for people?
Yeah, so we have essentially three different pricing tiers. All of the tiers include all of the features that you need that I mentioned so far about like the website, scheduling, the payment, email marketing, on-demand content. The difference in the plans is essentially the price per month and whether or not there's a small transaction fee. And that's because we're doing this trade-off between do you want the lower monthly price with a little bit of a transaction fee, or would you rather have a higher monthly price with no transaction fee? And then we add in a little bit of extra functionality. It's like, rather than just doing email notifications, you can do text messaging. So that's kind of like, or the difference between the studio plan and the middle plan is like you could do staff and team management. So there's a little bit of variation, but the core of what we're doing is, even on our introductory plan, you have all of the features that I mentioned. And that was really key for us because we wanted to say out of the gate, you can use everything and you have everything that you need. And so for that first level plan, which is called our essentials plan, because it has everything that you need, it's all the essentials. The monthly price for that plan is about $29 a month. There's a annual plan option, which gives you a discount, and that's where it's $22 per month, but you pay it all at once as one-time annual fee. So you get a discount if you pay it, upfront as an annual plan. And then that middle plan, which adds a little bit of additional functionality like text messaging, and removes some of the branding, and it has zero transaction fees. That is a monthly price of $59 per month, and then if it's on an annual plan, it drops to $49 per month that you pay once as an annual fee. And then for studios, we actually have the option to discuss with us. We don't actually have a fixed price for that plan. It's really a discussion with us to say what makes most sense for your studio. Would you prefer to pay a monthly fee? Would you prefer to just do transaction based on the amount of classes that you're doing? And so we really try to have that individualized conversation with each studio to figure out what the best fit is, rather than just saying, we're going to hit you with some price that's a one size fits all, which doesn't make sense. But I can guarantee you that we're a lot cheaper than, the other main software platforms that are out there. And that's, again, what we're trying to do. We're trying to develop a platform that has a lot of value that we're passing along to each of our customers so that they can really thrive and succeed.
Yeah, I'm just doing some math here. So 49 times 12. So if you pay for that for a year, that's 588. So yeah, I mean, that's amazing. Like, I think that to get like less features than that with MindBody Online. You are paying probably $100 a month. Like one of the studios I work with that's still using MindBody Online, I think is paying on a plan around $100 a month. And then had to get a different software for video on demand. And that's another $100 a month. And then what else are they paying for? Oh, Vimeo. They were hosting videos on Vimeo. So there was that payment. I'm not sure if they're still paying for that because obviously they've used a different platform for video on demand. And then they're actually paying for a software to help them send out the Zoom links that works in capacity with MindBody Online, but isn't MindBody because the services that MindBody was offering just weren't really suiting the needs. And so it's like $250 a month for a studio. That's a lot when you're like a small studio trying to survive this like current time of kind of sort of post-pandemic lands and over the last couple of years. So, and as an individual teacher to do email marketing, I mean, something like MailChimp or ConvertKit is going to cost you alone that amount that you just mentioned.
Yep. You're exactly right. And that's what we're doing. We're constantly trying to look at what's out there and say, we can put all this together at a lower cost and make it more efficient and have everything that you need consolidated in one place for really to cut your costs and the complexity down. And the other thing that I'll just mention, and particularly since we're on the podcast here, is that another big thing that we really value is partnerships and collaboration. So just like with this podcast, if you go to offeringtree.com/MBOM, you'll find that the pricing that I just mentioned gets discounted further. So we have, you can choose between if you want 15% off of the first year for an annual plan, or if you want, a discount off of the first 3 months for a monthly plan. So that's another thing that we do, is that we constantly try to share that value, collaborate, and partner. And it really has made a difference. I mean, as we've been hearing a lot of stories from studios and even solo teachers, I think what most people don't factor in is exactly what you're pointing to, Amanda, which is that it adds up. It may not seem like a lot. It's kind of like the analogy I use is it's like all these different streaming services. It's like, oh, okay, I'll use HBO Max, I'll use Netflix, I'll use Disney Plus. And all of a sudden at the end of the month, you're like, whoa, I just spent like $95 on streaming services, even though each one of them seems pretty affordable. When you take them in aggregate, you realize, wow, I'm spending almost $95 a month. And I'm speaking from experience here, unfortunately.
I was going to say, my husband and I just looked at our budget last month and we literally wrote that out. I'm like, wait, how much are we paying for Netflix? And we have Disney Plus and we have HBO Max and we have Amazon Prime. Are we even watching this much TV? No, we have a new baby. We are not watching that much TV.
Yeah.
Like we got to cancel one of these, but you're totally right. And then I don't know, add in Spotify Premium or Spotify Family, which is what we have, and that's another cost too. But I think that this is, if you're somebody who's listening who maybe has been curious about OfferingTree but has all your stuff set up, which I totally understand. When you have everything set up and you're just paying monthly and it comes off your credit card, it's really easy to just be like, well, it's working for me. I don't really want to change over at this point. But I would encourage you, like, do an actual audit of how much you're paying, because if you're paying for monthly hosting, a yearly cost of a domain, monthly email marketing, what else? Maybe a monthly platform for courses or video on demand or memberships. Do the math on all of that. And I would be completely shocked, because if it costs less than, $49, $59 a month, because in my experience, it's always more than that. And I know that I've paid a lot more than that in the future, and maybe possibly I'm even paying more than that right now. One other thing I'd like to mention is just chat about would be, people do have obviously choices with other platforms and stuff like that. And I think when I think about OfferingTree, I guess like the ones that seem the most similar that are out there would maybe be like Squarespace and Wix. Is that kind of what you would say as well? Like maybe would be the top competitors for OfferingTree in terms of all-in-one platforms?
Yeah, I think the ones that we hear most often are like WordPress. Wix comes up, I think, a fair amount, Squarespace. And what we typically hear is, I think, which is pretty common for Wix and Squarespace, and a little bit for WordPress too, is that they weren't really designed from the ground up to think about all of these components at the same time. They were really designed at the beginning to be sort of this, content management system for websites. And so what they've done over time is they've slowly started to add additional functionality as kind of like bolt on to their existing systems. And usually when people switch, it's because they realize, oh, that didn't quite work the way I thought it was going to work. Or it turns out that when I subscribe, to Wix or Squarespace or whoever, there's a monthly fee, and then there's all these additional add-on fees. Like there's add-on fees for these additional features that I want to include for memberships or for scheduling or appointments. And so it turns out that actually the monthly price quickly goes up. And so that's typically what we hear as the kind of main reason for why people are switching. And then also just realizing that it wasn't designed, specifically for the health and wellness industry. It was designed to be an all-purpose. I can't. One of the slogans is like, something like everything to anyone or something like that. So it's emphasizing that what they're trying to do is be an all-purpose, like a general all-purpose solution, which then means that you're trading off for each of these specific ways that it might be used.
Yeah, for sure. And you kind of just answered the question that I hadn't asked yet, but I was going to ask, like, why should somebody choose OfferingTree over, like a Wix? Like, to me, Wix would be probably the closest to being most comprehensive. And maybe that's just because I have some experience with Wix, but I feel like, you could argue that Wix has a pretty good monthly price, website hosting, domain, email marketing. They can do memberships, they can do selling products, but exactly what you said is the case. And this is what I found. I worked with a studio who put things on Wix, and it's like kept running into these roadblocks because Wix is not designed for yoga studios. Wix is not designed for yoga teachers and wellness entrepreneurs. It's designed for like all types of businesses, which is amazing. Like Wix is great, no hate on Wix. But if you're looking for something that's for you and for your industry, I think looking at OfferingTree, it's like everything you guys offer is specific to what you'll need in your yoga business, which is what you want. Again, it's like we're not yoga teachers because we want to figure out and fiddle around with software. It's like we want to be able to set up classes and send out Zoom links really easily and have our students be able to pay us and then be able to set different pricing plans, maybe have courses, programs, workshops, video library, et cetera, et cetera. And we want to be able to do that easily. And I think that if you kind of just look at it on paper, I think Wix does do all of that, but not in the same capacity for this industry as OfferingTree.
Yep, and I think that's a really good summation. Essentially, what we're doing is, again, we're going to where a specific industry or set of users or clients is being underserved, and so that's why we're specifically in the health and wellness space. Because when you go to one of those general all-purpose solutions, it's built for everyone, which means that it's not built specifically for you. And so you, just as you described, it looks great on paper, and you're like, wow, this looks great. But then when you get into the nitty-gritty of trying to actually implement it, it doesn't work the way that you think it works. And that's usually, we've even had people that were with us that left Wix and then came back. We're like, welcome, no hard feelings. We're glad to have you back. So,
yeah. I mean, one of my suggestions is always like, don't just like take it from me, like go and try it. Go and actually like get your hands a little bit dirty with this thing. And OfferingTree, you can try out for free. Wix, you can try out for free. Squarespace, I think, has a free trial as well. Like, go create a login for each of those and fiddle around with them and see what's most intuitive for you based on what you want to do. And I feel pretty confident suggesting that to somebody, knowing that if you are a yoga teacher or a studio owner, OfferingTree is going to have the most capacity for you. And I think that that's like the best is actually go like play around on the back end. And do you guys have a free plan, or is it just a free trial of 30 days?
Just a free trial. We used to have a free plan, but we actually we phased it out because we didn't think that it met our core mission, which was we wanted to make sure that whatever plan you were on, you really had the all-in-one experience, and the free plan didn't do that. And so we ultimately said, you know what, we're going to remove that because it's not meeting our standard of being able to have everything all in one. So now it's just those sort of 3 plans that you could choose between, but each of them has a free trial.
Okay, cool. And how long is the free trial?
The free trial is if you want to try it without entering any, credit card information or anything like that. It's a 7-day free trial, and then if you want to try it for longer and you're willing to sign up, and you could still cancel before the end of the free trial, and you enter your credit card, I think it goes up to 14 days to get 2 weeks.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's a good amount of time to like get a feel for the platform and stuff. I feel like once you get into the back end, it's pretty intuitive, pretty simple to use. And one other thing I want to touch on is just I know you guys have really great support and really great support Facebook group and that type of thing. Can we talk a little bit about like if somebody does sign up and maybe there's somebody who doesn't identify as being super, technologically friendly and they have some challenges, what type of help and support can they expect from their OfferingTree experience?
Yeah, it's a great question. We actually just launched a brand new introductory course for anybody that's joining the platform. So I'm excited that this podcast is now, because we spent a lot of time developing this intro course that has specific modules. There's a downloadable workbook. So we put a lot of time and effort into just orienting everybody as they come into the system about here's the terminology we use, here's how you go about doing these different things in the system. So that's a big resource, and that's immediately accessible. It's on demand. So whether you're looking at it 2 a.m. in the morning or 2 in the afternoon, all of that's fine. In addition to that, we also have a whole bunch of options for accessing help. So you can, within the system itself, click on a little button and it'll open up a little chat window. And there's a bot that pops up. And I know people are not super keen on bots. I'm not super keen on bots. But the reason we have a bot is because, again, if it's 2 in the morning, our support team might not be awake. So at least the bot will give you something. You can chat with them and it'll suggest different resources to you. And then there's a little button that you just click that says get in touch. And as soon as you click that button, you can type in your question and whatever it is, and you hit submit, and it goes to a live human being. And then that's part of our support team that'll get back to you. Usually we have a very quick response time. People are kind of shocked when we get back to them. They're like, wow, I didn't realize you were going to get back to me that quickly. So that's the main way. We also have the option to, if you're really struggling, to say, I really need some help here, you can reach out to our support team. And often we'll kind of schedule these different sessions, whether it's like, an office hours or something like that. So you can drop in and kind of get live help if you're really, really stuck. So we try to provide a whole variety of options. You can watch something, you can hear something, you can read something, or you can talk to somebody.
Awesome. Thanks for going through that. And yeah, I think that that's a really cool option as well. Because I know when I first started using WordPress for my website, I'd never built a website in my life. So I had no idea what I was doing. And I really could have used like that type of support, but they still don't have like that level of support, unfortunately. And I think that that's, again, another benefit is being able to like talk to a real human who can help you out, or, watch a video if you're more of that type of person. Sometimes watching a video can be really helpful. So I think those are both really, really great options. Is there anything else people should know about OfferingTree?
I would say I think the main thing to know about OfferingTree is this is actually a comment we got from one of our users, and to this day I still love it. The feedback we got, because we had been helping them out with a particular issue, was, I love you guys. You're like the independent roaster on my down the corner, the coffee roaster down the corner on my street. And I just love that sentiment. It's sort of like, yeah, we're here. We're in the community with you. We're actually committed to really trying to solve these problems that are out there so that you can focus on teaching and doing what you love. And so I think that's the main message, is that we like to say we're always just an email away. And we love feedback, whether it's positive, whether it's critical, whatever it is, because that's how we all learn and grow. And so I think our aspiration really as a company is to be a learning community, and to really partner with, experts and people out in the field like you, Amanda, and then also partnering with all of our users and being able to say, let's work on this together, because we'll figure it out much quicker and we'll end up with a better result if we're all talking and collaborating and working together.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's something that I've always really loved about you guys as well, is just it is that's a great way to describe it, is like, you know, your local coffee roaster where you go and, you might run into some other people there, and it's like friendly faces and it feels like a nice place to go and experience, and everyone's really welcoming and that type of thing. Um and so if somebody is maybe contemplating OfferingTree, I feel like maybe a couple of great places to start would be get on the email list, maybe attend a couple of the workshops, hop into the Facebook group. And even though it's a support community, but just get a feel for like the vibe and then sign up for a free trial. So we've talked about how you can do the free trial. And, I do have a code so you can save some money. It's offeringtree.com/MBO. If people want to sign up for the email list or get access for the workshops and the Facebook group, where can they go to do that?
Yeah, the easiest way to go to do that is you can just go to offeringtree.com and you can sign up there. If you want to go specifically for just looking at events, you can go to events.offeringtree.com, and that'll pull up whatever the current next webinar is that's scheduled. And then once you sign up for any of the webinars, you'll get automatically added to our email list. And you can always opt out if you're like, that was cool, but I think I'm not interested anymore. So there's no pressure, and we always like to invite people to check us out. And then often, like I said, we'll have people that'll check us out and then they'll go do something else and they'll say, I came back. I really like you guys and I'm interested in what you're doing. The other thing that I would just also highlight is that you did a wonderful course for us that I would just put a little plug in. That was a fun collaboration that we did for teaching, an on-demand kind of course, and being able to look at how to put that together and put an online course. So you can find that as well. And we've just got a lot of different resources. So I'd say connect with us. If you have questions, you can reach out to support@offeringtree.com. So lots of different ways to connect.
Yeah. And I'm just grabbing that link for the course. I think it was like offeringtree.com/course or courses. Yeah.
I think that's
offeringtree.com/course. And then if people want to join the Facebook group, it is called, just pulling that up as well. I think it's OfferingTree support.
That sounds right. I can pull that up as well.
OfferingTree user group. So if you just search OfferingTree user group in Facebook, you'll be able to join it. And I just feel like that's, if you're kind of contemplating, I feel like it's a good place to just get an understanding for the vibe. Like it's kind of like being able to go, it's the closest that I think we actually have right now to being able to go to that like local coffee shop and, see your friends hanging out and stuff. And you might, know a yoga teacher or a yoga studio that's working with or using OfferingTree. I feel like I see it so much in the community now. So I would definitely recommend that. And then, yeah, I just had a student email, or a listener email me a question about OfferingTree that I didn't know the answer to. And so I just sent an email to support, and I heard back within a couple of hours and was able to, give her the answer to her question. And of course, I could have just sent her to support as well, but I was like, I'll just do it. Nice for me to see how this functions as well as a partner. And everything was super smooth. So it's definitely the type of thing where if you do have a problem, you can get an answer really quickly, which is something for me that's really important, because I know like the one thing that takes me from like 0 to 100 quickest is like if my website breaks or like I sent out an email by accident or something like that. So I think that's one other thing to add.
Yeah, I think that's a great addition. And the last thing I would say is, as I was highlighting before, there's a lot of different educational resources. And if you go to our webpage, and I think it's in the upper right, if you click, there's a little demo video. At the end of it, there is a download that you can download, and that's just a little worksheet that you can use. So even if you don't use us, I'd encourage you to use that worksheet so you can compare other service providers. Because one of the things that we've noticed that's been kind of challenging is there's been a lot of new services popping up, and they're not always so transparent. So often they'll have like these hidden service fees that you don't even see that get passed on to your student, but you don't know that. So then they're like taking these, a cut of the revenue from the student, but you don't know that they're applying it. So it's just like, we don't do that. Like, we're not interested in trying to like do this game of hiding things and not telling you what's going on. So that checklist helps you to ask some of the questions of whoever you're using to just do that assessment before you sign up with them.
Yeah, I think that that's a really great point to bring up because there's literally nothing worse than getting an angry student email like, oh, I went to buy this thing that was $20 and I got charged like a $4 fee, or vice versa, like not realizing that when you set your prices, hey, all of a sudden they're taking like this percentage away. And, obviously you as a business need to make money. And I think everyone understands how that works, but I think it's just being upfront about it, right? It's like understanding what money is going to be taken where and what service fees are going where and that type of thing. And it does really suck because if you say you set your classes for like $10 a class and then you realize for every person signing up, you're losing $3. I mean, that's pretty significant. So I definitely appreciate the fact that you guys are doing that. And also that you mentioned that so that people know.
Yeah. And a big thing I would say is how much choice do you have? So like even in our system, we're upfront saying that if you're on the lower priced plan, there is a small transaction fee because that helps us to offset the actual costs to deliver that service. But we give you the choice to absorb it or pass it along. So it's not like it's built into the system that you have to absorb it or your student has to absorb it. You get to decide that for yourself. And so I think that's a big metric, which is like how much choice do you have within whatever platform you're using? And that's kind of like a key gauge I would use.
Yeah, for sure. That's hugely important. Amazing. Anything else we should go over, touch on that people should know today?
No, I think this was great. I'm really delighted that you had me back, on today's show. I hope it was helpful, and I really just hope that the listeners of today's show can really just hear that the intention behind what we're doing is really coming from this net positive impact, which is kind of built into the DNA of our company. And so, if anything I shared today wasn't helpful, wasn't useful, then please just leave it here on today's episode. And if there's something that you have more questions or you'd like to learn about, please don't hesitate to reach out because we're really here to help. That's our mission.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much. And yeah, it's always a pleasure to chat with you, Alex. You're just amazing. And I'm glad that we're connected and that we get to continue to partner together and whatnot. So thank you so much for your time today and for doing this episode with me.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Amanda. It was a delight to be here.
Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of the podcast. To find links, notes, resources, and everything mentioned in today and all episodes of the show, you can head on over to mbomeyoga.com. You can find the podcast and myself on Facebook and social media at Mastering the Business of Yoga. And I would love for you to join the private Facebook community, Yoga Business Badasses. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please make sure you reach out to me at info@mbomeyoga.com. And last of all, if you enjoyed this episode of the show, please make sure you hit subscribe and leave a review for the podcast. It would mean the world. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.